In this session, I want to share with you kind of a very specific insight that I had when I was a dating guru 20 years ago or something. And I started a very big, successful email newsletter that eventually got up into the millions of subscribers. And what I learned was that what I kind of realized when I was offering courses and books and things like this is that, and one of the things you learn when you're doing this, particularly if you are studying marketing and doing lots of split tests, is you realize that the value of things is very subjective. One of the videos that I made, one of the very first videos that I put on YouTube, it's still up there from, it's got to be 15 or 20 years ago. And one of the first videos I made when I was teaching business, this is about 15 years ago, was I held up two books. And in one hand, I held up Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. And in the other hand, I held up Jay Abraham's Mr. X book, I think it was. And I said, okay, now I'm holding two books in my hands. One of them was $10 and one of them was $1,000. Okay. So Robert Cialdini's book, you could walk into a bookstore and get it for like $10 in paperback. Jay Abraham's book was $1,000. That's what he actually sold it for. And he sold a lot of them. I think he sold thousands of them for $1,000. So the question was, is the Mr. X book worth 100 times as much as the Influence book? Is Jay Abraham's book actually worth $1,000 versus, the $10? And even more so, I mean, is any book worth $1,000 for a book? I mean, whoa, it's pretty radical to sell a book for $1,000. Well, I'll ask a different way. Okay. So I don't think I have a $1 bill. I think I've got 100 right here. Let me just take a look. Yeah, here we go. So here's a $100 US bill. All right. I don't have a one here to show you. I don't think I stuck one in here, but you're seeing this before other people. So imagine I have a $1 bill here and I've got this $100 bill. What's the difference? Is this thing worth 100 times as much as the $1 bill? Right? They got the same ink, same colors. Maybe this has got a little bit more security protection in it, but they each probably cost a couple of cents to make or something. What's the difference? Yeah. So this brings us to a set of almost like philosophical conundrums around value. Like, what are things worth, and why are things worth anything at all? Why do we, attribute value to things? Ray Kurzweil says something interesting. He says, the only thing that has value anymore is information. Because information turns raw material and raw resources into products and services and experiences. And so before we had information and technology, oil was just this black tarry stuff that would stick to your camel or whatever. It was this annoying thing. But once we had information and technology, all of a sudden oil can be refined into gasoline, and then it literally powers the whole economy. But that's information. It's information technology that makes the raw material into a resource. Does this make sense, everybody? Just wiggle your fingers at me if you're following. Okay. So this then led me down, all these rabbit holes of thinking about, well, how much is a book of dating advice worth? How much is a course on dating worth? How much is a newsletter worth? And, then you start doing price testing, and I'll tell you a little story about price testing. So when I first released my book of dating advice, based on the advice of my friend Dean Jackson, who had showed this to me, I made the book and then I made 3 bonus books. So you kind of got one book plus 3 bonus books. So you got some, a little package, and it was $39.95. Okay, so $39.95 for a dating book plus 3 kind of little ebooks that went with it. And I would sell a book every day or two. And, sometimes maybe I'd sell a couple. And I did that for several weeks, maybe even a couple months I was at it. And then one day I decided to test prices of the book. And so, no, No, it was, I'm sorry, it was $29.95 was the price of the book originally, $29.95. One day I decided to test prices. This is after a few months. And so I raised the price from $29.95 to $39.95. That was the price test. And so one morning I set the price test. Okay, so I raised the price from basically $30 to $40. And then I went and I lived in LA at the time, and I drove down to San Diego to actually hang out with my good friends, Dean and Richard. Dean Jackson, the one that kind of showed me how to do this in the first place. He was visiting. So I drove down there a couple hours. We spent the day together. And then in the afternoon, we went over to his hotel, and I said, hey, man, can I borrow your computer and check my stats? And I opened it up, and I couldn't believe it, because that day when I raised the price to $39.95, I sold 10 copies of my book. It was the most I had ever sold. It was a record. So the day that I raised the price, I sold more copies of the book. And so I quickly did the math, and I was like, $40 times 10, that's $400. I made $400 in sales today, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I could do that every day, that's 12 grand a month. Like, that's potential freedom there. And that was huge for me, because I had recently lost my last client. I was basically unemployed. I had a couple of months worth of, you know, like savings left kind of thing. So it was a very big breakthrough for me at the time. But it also taught something that was way deeper than, you know, superficial stuff, I guess, because I saw that the day I raised the price by a third, I sold the most copies of my book. And I've gone on to do price testing of multiple different things and seen that play out. Several years later, I was selling a course. It was one of our video courses, and we were selling it for, I think it was $197. I think we were selling it for $200. And Mary on our team said, hey, we haven't price tested this. So we did with some different prices. And it actually turned out that it sold better for $100 more. So went from $200 to $300, and it sold better. And this was in a price test where we ran these things kind of head to head. And this has happened to me, you know, multiple times. So we have to really, really get in life. You know, they say you get what you negotiate. Who's ever heard that one? In life, you get what you negotiate. Okay. There's something to this. There's something to you get what you negotiate, but there's also something to perceived value